Yo, what's up? This is Real Talk Darbs and I have very exciting news for you. Dinari Cash and Beam & Go has decided to tie up to bring groceries to your loved ones in the Philippines. By using the application Dinari Cash, you can actually deliver yung mga groceries na gusto nating ipadala door to door sa Pilipinas. In light of the community quarantine and growing COVID-19 cases in the Philippines, we are tying up with Beam & Go para sa mga kababayan nating OFW na nandito sa UAE to buy groceries. So what are you waiting for? Download Dinari Cash app now and enjoy a lot of services, not just sending money but also sending grocery to your families at home.
Yon! So welcome to another Finance Friday with your Kuya Jay, aka the Purpose-Driven Advisor. And thank you for watching kung nasa ka man ngayon. And we are streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and even on LinkedIn. Kaya kung nandiyan ka man, say hi sa comment section. And don't forget to share this episode kasi it's a special episode for me. Matagal ko na itong gustong mangyari. And ang guest natin today is none other than a very known person dito sa community natin sa UAE. Also, itong episode natin will be available sa aking Pera and Purpose podcast sa Spotify, Anchor, and Apple Podcast. Siguro mga after 2 weeks pa after this live event. And huge thanks to our regular viewers out there and a big shout out to Dinari Cash for supporting my advocacy on financial literacy. Now, ang episode natin today is about the true meaning of wealth. Bakit kaya ito yung nilagay ko? Kasi nga, probably many of us are chasing the wrong reasons. Nagpunta tayo dito sa UAE for a greener pasture, but why not just, di ba, water your own garden na lang kaya? Or are we chasing the wrong things in life? And yung kausap natin today is someone who is a really experienced person na, and I've shared some stories then, and he has shared his wisdom, which really changed my perspective about wealth, and yung mga naturo niya sa akin are also the same things that I teach to my clients. And after nung mga exchange of ideas namin, I even started challenging my clients na, bakit mo ba talaga gustong yumaman? Is it really something that is connected to a meaningful purpose or meaningful reason? So, before we start, i-introduce ko muna ang ating guest for this afternoon, okay? And he is a multi-awarded educator with PhD. Dalawang PhD niya sa Management Research King's College sa London, UK, and a PhD in Philosophy sa De La Salle University sa Pinas. And he's also a former Dean of American College, Dubai, and the Digital Faculty Consultant for McGraw-Hill Education for Europe and the Middle East and Africa. And he is also the recipient of the OFW Bayani Award and one of the Ilustrado magazine's 100 most influential Filipinos in the Gulf for 5 straight years. So, gano'n nakatagal si Doki sa ganyang na kilala dito. And he's also an educator and lagi siya na-feature. He's always featured sa College Times. He was even featured sa Abu Dhabi TV, and we all know ABS-CBN kung saan siya unang nakilala when there was a standing ovation na binigay ng mga graduates during sa isang graduation ceremony ng ACD. And also, he has received so many awards as an educator. Isa na dito yung Educator Innovator of the Year by the Saga Awards. Another one is the Educator of the Year by the Filipino Times. Last year lang din to. And also, Educator of the Year by the United Federation of Film Educators sa New York. Sa New York, grabe. He is a former monk, a writer, a motivational speaker, ang aming landlord, a good friend, and he is the reigning, defending, pound-for-pound champion professor of the world, Doc Rex Bacarra! Woohoo! Okay ba intro ko? Panalo ba?
Natawa ako sa intro mo eh.
Kamusta ka naman sa kabilang kwarto, Doc?
Okay naman, parang hindi tayo magkapit-bahay ah.
Kaya nga eh. So, talagang sobrang excited ako for our episode today. And buti na lang tapos na yung klase mo and you were able to make some time for this event. Now, I just want to know, Doc, kasi many people probably don't know you yet, no? So, can you give us a quick intro about you for those who don't know you yet, Doki?
Ako po ay naglalakad lamang po sa kalsada. Just kidding. No, I always consider myself as somebody who journeys. And I always considered my life here in this world as, a passing through. At least that's, that's one way of me introducing myself to you. Kasi nga, nasabi na rin naman ni Jay, yung anything outward na natanggap ko. And I'm very appreciative doon sa mga sinabi ni Jay. But I came from Samar, and from Catbalogan, Samar. And then I went to Manila to study and to find a job. And then I became a monk in Malaybalay, Bukidnon, where I stayed for 5 years. And then I went back again to Manila, to San Beda, na kung saan pinag-aaral ako ng master's and PhD. And then I also became an administrator of the San Beda University. And then 11 years ago, I came to Dubai to become a teacher. And then that's basically it.
Bah, parang short na short yung intro na yun, Doc. Now, when you're asking and wondering talaga, kasi you've shared so much wisdom dito sa community natin, and some are confused, ano ba talaga yung meaning ng wealth? So, para sa'yo, Doki, paano mo masabi na you are truly wealthy in your own perspective? What is true wealth for you, Doc?
Well, marami akong kaibigan. Just kidding. Now, the dictionary would always define wealth as an abundance of material possession. For some people, wealth is about being successful in terms of your career. But I think many people are forgetting that wealth, and let me say this in a spiritual manner, in a manner that is, I consider to be value-laden, wealth is something that is within you, and it is going to be defined by contentment. Not necessarily satisfaction, but contentment. Contentment with what you have. Because there is a danger in pursuing wealth that is equitable to material possession. Okay, yung materialistic point of view pagdating sa wealth. Because you need to understand that the very definition of wealth sa Old English, it's actually divided into two, W-E-A-L and then T-H, which is, the Old English words put together became wealth. W-E-A-L, which is will, it is defined as well-being. Well-being. And T-H in Old English is actually defined as a condition of, which means that it is a condition of well-being, which is very much a dissonance against the way we view wealth today. Because we always thought that wealth is about material possession, when in fact, when the word wealth was invented, was created, it was meant to be a condition of well-being. Sarili natin, pananaw natin sa buhay. At hindi yun nakafocus lamang sa material possession. And there is a reason for that. Because at that time, okay, the golden ages, they realized that material possession does not and is not and wasn't the real meaning of wealth. So, unless you have a question, Jay.
Yeah, so ang ganda nung intro mo dun, Doc, pati yung pinaka-word na wealth is meron talaga siyang meaning even in the past. And I just realized na, oo nga, parang ang society these days kasi is so embedded doon sa ano ba yung nakikita nila sa superficial, sa outward. And it's good na minention mo na yung wealth is something that is happening inside of you. And going to my next question kasi is, ano ba talaga, Doc, yung pinaka-reason bakit kailangan nating malaman yung pinaka-definition natin ng wealth for us?
Because we need to have a life that is well-lived. When I say to have a life that is well-lived, you have to understand that in the beginning, in my introduction of who I am, I mentioned that first sentence, or then I said that this is my journey. And our journey, according to the Greek philosopher Aristotle, is a journey that is in pursuance of happiness. Pursuance of happiness. And that is the reason why we needed to know what is the real definition of wealth in alignment doon sa pagpursue natin ng happiness. And you need to also to understand, and I do understand this perfectly, kung bakit karamihan ng tao, ang pananaw nila sa true wealth ay mas material na bagay. Kasi nga, may tinatawag tayong patterns of behavior. Anong ibig sabihin ng patterns of behavior? Na nung bata ka pa, nang pinanganak ka, your parents, institutions, probably even church, or even, your friends, your brothers and sisters, your cousins, your nephews, family members, you have also the government, you have the companies all around you, all saying that you need to have this, that you need to buy this in order for you to be wealthy, in order for you to be successful. So yung mind mo, kumbaga, na nakakontrata na, parang machine yan eh. Ito yung impormasyon na napunta sa'yo, di syempre, wala ka pa namang critical thought nun, na-form ka pala. So ang tingin mo talaga, at nakikita mo sa environment, na para maging successful ka, dapat maging wealthy ka. At ang definition ng wealth para sa'yo na nakikita mo as exemplified by people and the environment around you is that of buying more stuff and buying more things. But you need to understand that monetary wealth is not true wealth. It is not true wealth. Remember that money is an instrument. It is a tool for you to design your life. It is a means to an end. It is not the end in itself. But many people come up with a kind of let us say, a decision or a realization. At ang realization nila ay tipo bagang ang money, ito na yung end. Na pag nagkaroon ako nito, ito na talaga masasabing successful ako. Again, yun din ang expectation ng karamihan ng tao. And this is the reason why you really need to reflect and you really need to know the very definition of wealth. And as I did mention to you, wealth, okay, kung ano man ang definition ng wealth, is a state of well-being, and at the same time, for you to achieve happiness, in the pursuance of happiness, it is not a priority. As I mentioned, it is a tool towards something. Remember, let me tell you this also, Jay. There are two characteristics of wealth as defined by probably by some people or many other people. Even I myself, when I was young, when you define it as material wealth, there are actually two characteristics pagdating sa material wealth. It is illusory, and the other one is that it is fleeting. What do you mean by illusory? It is an illusion, but it is an illusion propagated and being given to you, handed on to you by people who don't really know much about what we want in life, in the study of human nature. And the second one, it is fleeting. Once you have a Louis Vuitton bag, once you have a Bentley, once you have a very, a high-end sneakers, for example, it is a very pleasant feeling to have these things. They are expensive. Okay, people probably are jealous of you. That's what you think. And that pleasantness, that being pleasant, that having that kind of a feeling that is good, is fleeting in the sense that once you become familiar with that thing, it loses its value. It becomes common. And then our tendency is to look for something else that will duplicate, okay, if not duplicate, that will somehow make you experience again that pleasantness that you've lost because you've been familiar to that which you've aspired in the beginning. So it's going to be a want after want after want after want, because you are trying to experience again what you did experience in the past, again in a very fleeting experience.
Oo nga, yung minention mo, Doc, no, illusionary and fleeting. Those are two temporary reasons for acquiring yung success nga. Kasi I remember before na parang ang batayan ko ng success is sa dami ng sneakers that I have owned in the past. Parang dun naka-base yung self-worth ko, dun naka-base yung reputation ko versus my peers dun sa aking circle. And I was formed in such a way na yun din nga yung, I think, was the right way of measuring wealth and success. And it just so happened na it's so hard na baguhin yung thinking na yun if you grew up in a community, in a family, in a society in general, na ganun yung parang winire sa'yo when you were young. So, when you were a little younger, Doc, probably in your 20s, these were the years na you lived as a monk, right? Sa mountain sa Bukidnon, right? Oo, so can you share with us yung influence or yung impact sa'yo during your years living as a monk? Gano'ng katagal ka naging monk pala?
Matagal. Kasi I probably started when I was 23.
Hmm.
Tapos, I don't know, probably more than 30 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, 30 years. Pero ano yung...
Yeah, I think probably. I don't know. I'm very bad in mathematics. Pero mula ako ng 25, I'm 50 now. So, doon pumunta ako dito ng 10 years, 10 to 11 years ago. So, you do the math. Yung parang ganun. Basta matagal. In
So,
fact, my adult life, I spent it in the monastery. Both in Malaybalay Bukidnon, the contemplative monastery, and then when they realized that I have a gift for teaching, then I went to Manila, San Beda University, of course, to teach and to be an administrator of the university, San Beda. Ang life ko kasi noon, nang pumasok ako noon sa Malaybalay Bukidnon, of course, it was very different. It is characterized by what is known in Latin as fuga mundi. Fuga mundi, in English, is flight from the world. Yeah, many people think that when you enter a monastery, you are being called by God because you're a strong person. In fact, the opposite is true. You are called by God because you are a weak person. And the monastery, through reflection, prayer, meditation, and all the exercises of the monastery, that of serving God, is supposed to strengthen the weak. And this is the reason why it is going to be an environment of forgiveness, an environment of prayer, because we have to be tolerant and forgiving to people who are weak in the monastery. People in the monastery try to be good with so much effort. And it's going to be an internal struggle because the greatest enemy that we have, these are not other people, but of course, who we are inside us. So nagsisimula kami to discipline ourselves and of course, to pray for the world. We usually wake up very early in the morning, around, if I'm not mistaken, around 2:45. And palagi yung sinasabi, the reason why monks wake up really early in the morning to pray, because they're praying for the world while the world is sleeping, which means you while you are asleep. And then we go for two types, work and prayer. Ora et labora. Ora, okay, means prayer, and of course, labora means work. We are not focused on one thing, which is in contrast with many people now. I mean to say, outside of the monastic life, outside of the kind of life, wherein in order for you to be successful, in order for you to be wealthy, you really need to work hard. You really need to focus pagdating sa work. Doon ko natutunan yung tipong it is not the priority. Kaya we pray 7 times a day. Halimbawa, ako, nagtatrabaho ko sa farm kasi may kape ang monastery. So, kumbaga, nagbubungkal kami hindi naman nagbubungkal, nagtatanim ng kape, tapos nililinisan yung paligid ng kape, tapos yung berries din, yung kape na yon, ina-harvest namin. Nagtatrabaho ako doon. Pag naririnig namin yung bell, kasi bundok yung monastery, we're on top of a hill, tapos may farm sa baba, pag maririnig namin yung bell, anything that we're doing right then and there, we have to drop. Hindi yung tipong tatapusin ko to, kailangan matapos to. Hindi. You really need to drop it whether tapos o hindi. Tapos tatakbo ako, pupunta ako sa church para i-meet lahat ng community, ang members ng community, and then we pray. You know, I realize how important it is because it gives focus on what really is essential in life, and it's not going to be work. Because we could survive, you know, we are able to sustain ourselves with that kind of a relationship between prayer and work. Prayer makes us reflect of what is the essentials of life. Mm-hmm. And prayer supports us for the simple reason that we need to survive. But we should not be obsessive in terms of having to work 24/7. So you kahit dito sa labas, as much as possible, you know, if there's just too much that I need to do, then I remember what happened to me in the monastery, the lessons I gained pagdating sa trabaho. Na if there is somebody who calls me for something else, like for example, a friend, or probably even if a chance encounter who needs something, like a shoulder to lean on, or probably just needs a listening ear, then immediately I drop whatever it is that I'm doing as much as possible, and I try to, because I know that work will always be there, and it's not necessary to finish it at a given time. and I need to go and attend to something far more important, which is basically that of having a relationship. And this is the reason why another definition of wealth, if I have to go back to what we were discussing, is not just the material wealth, but wealth in terms of relationship, the nurturance of that kind of relationship, lifestyle, your family, your health. These are all wealth. You also need to understand that, Jay, that God loves diversity. And this is the reason why the way we define wealth and the way we pursue wealth depends on each person. But even if we say that it depends on each person, there is a foundation of the definition of wealth. You might have your own definition of wealth. I might have my own definition of wealth. Other people might be pursuing something else according to their point of view of wealth. But regardless of all those, you will notice that there is a current underneath of all these definitions that somehow most people should try to unravel and to dig and know what it really is. Because if you are able to know the very foundation of wealth, which is of course happiness and how to be happy, and knowing that we have family, relationship, and money as well, then magkakaroon ka ng focus sa buhay mo. At nang sinasabi kong focus, meaning to say, there will be balance in your life. There will be probably, I'm not saying that there will be no fear, and I'm not saying that there will be no stress, because as long as we are alive, we will always be stressed. We will always experience stress. The important thing here is to lessen the stress. And it is not just to lessen the stress, it is also that you are able to challenge the conventional wisdom of what stress is. Because stress, when considered to be challenges, are actually fulcrum or okay, ito yung mga tools, ito mga challenges na ito for you to become a person of strength. And a person of compassion and empathy, knowing that you went through it. So therefore, when you see others going through the same situation that you experienced before, then you would understand them and you would avoid judging them and you would actually exhibit care and love, which is the very foundation of our belief as Christians and Catholics.
Wow, grabe to. Ang daming learning dun sa buhay mo bilang monk, ha? As in, I mean, from the very rituals that you said, prayer in the morning and then dropping work and knowing your priorities in life. So, pero itong buhay mo sa monk, Doc, I start to believe na yung ginagawa nyo back then is something that's very important na i-include sa very foundation of every human sa society natin. Would you think na yung mga basic na mindset or principles of monks or other religious groups should be deeply kumbaga dapat ba siyang ituro at a very early age? Kasi for me, na-realize ko lang tong true meaning of wealth for me when I reached the age of 30, when I was already in Dubai. Kasi as I grew up nga, hindi naman ganun yung upbringing. Even sa school, hindi naman napag-uusapan, even financial literacy, hindi napag-uusapan. Most definitely, pati yung true meaning of wealth, hindi nga natatakel yun ng mga bata. Parang it's a very deep subject. Pero if maaga siyang maintindihan ng bawat tao, siguro ang mundo will be not how it is right now. That's just my personal, so what do you think?
I agree with you. And I think many people already heard me say this, that for me, education is education of character. And for me, when I say education of character, it implies that we become critical thinkers, and it implies that we have a greater understanding of what life is. You need to understand when I say that fleeting, it's not just the material things that are fleeting. Our life is also fleeting. And to be immersed in an environment that is propagated by illusions. When I say illusions, ito yung mga bagay na ginugusto natin pero hindi naman talaga dapat, pero nandyan sila kasi nga nakikita at naririnig natin sa ibang tao. We have so many advertisers around us, and all of these advertisers of these companies, all they have in common is to sell products. And of course, when they are selling products, they will give you and aid you with something that is really beautiful visually. And in human psychology, anything that is beautiful visually would give that kind of a desire kay out of you, take that out of desire out of you, that human desire. At anong nangyayari sa desire na yun pag walang reflection at walang meditation? Ibig sabihin nun, napupunta kahit yung pagpupursu mo ng happiness, kahit yung meaning ng life mo, napupunta doon sa material wealth. What does meditation or what does reflection, katulad ng ginagawa ng mga monks, what do they do to you as a person? What they do to you is that of giving a pause to your decisions, giving a pause to your being rash, and giving purpose and meaning, true meaning to your existence as long as we are alive. Nababalanse kasi, like nandun ako sa monasteryo, tingnan mo ha, when I say fuga mundi, flight from the world, it's not just the physical flight from being in the outside world and being in the monastery, but also because may flight din pagdating sa practices ng mga tao sa labas at pagdating mo sa loob. Look, pare-pareho kami ng damit sa loob. Simple, yung naka-white, kaya nga nang una akong dumating dito sa Dubai, nakita ko yung mga locals, naka-white. Ang tawag sa amin noon, yung sutana, kumbaga, okay? Yung habit. So parang walang diferensya. Sabi ko, para talaga silang mga monks din. Pero pare-pareho kami ng damit noon. Kaya less ang stress para sa akin. Wala akong iniisip na ano bang isusuot yung kinabukasan. Ano ba yung kulay ang pipiliin ko? Kasi para naman ng kulay white eh. At saka meron kaming pang-work na parang grayish or bluish na yun ang ginagamit namin pag nag-work. Pero paulit-ulit yun everyday, nilalabhan lang paulit-ulit. But the wisdom of that is, because we're living with simplicity, at kahit na bombarded kami ng mga advertisers din na naririnig namin, hindi na kami nakikialam because we're living in a community and we're acting in the same way at mataas yung spiritual, kumbaga, influence sa amin na it's possible to live simply and it's possible not to heed the advertisers and it's also possible just to sustain yourself with things necessarily for living and not with the luxuries in life. Again, what I'm saying here is, of course, money is important. I love luxurious things. I like eating in restaurants. I'm not going to be hypocritical about it. I am in Dubai, for God's sake. Ang dami-dami yung makikita ang advertisements dyan. Pero, ang maganda din lang kasi sa experience ko is, because as I mentioned, I was a monk before, bumabalik-balik sa isip ko palagi yung, pwede ka namang mabuhay nang hindi mo fulfill yung expectations ng ibang tao, yung material expectations ng ibang tao. Kasi di ba pag umaga, anong ginagawa mo? Nagsusuklay ka, naliligo ka, nagpapabango ka, namimili ka ng kulay ng damit mo. Para ano? Kasi para paglabas mo, pag tinitingnan ka ng tao, oy, okay. It's like you're looking for affirmation coming from other people, validation of your existence coming from other people. Even the way we behave in social media, all the likes and all the hearts and all the comments, you become affected if it is negative or you become, positive, or it jolts you out of your existence pag nakikita mong medyo negative ang nangyayari. Ibig sabihin, yung existence mo nakadepende sa iba when in fact it shouldn't be. Again, I'm not going to be hypocritical about it. Naapektuhan din ako in one way or the other, but probably not as intense as what the other people would experience because of my life experience in the monastery. Look, I am not looking for, and I think I've read this from Robbins, okay? And I like what he said, that it's really not about financial security. Mm-hmm. It's basically more of financial stability. Okay, because and I think he's correct in saying that there is a difference between the two, because as human beings we should live for and with the moment. Okay, I will live for and with the moment, that we should be able to enjoy what we are doing now instead of thinking and focusing so much on what will happen in the future, which may or may not happen, and yet it's robbing you out of your happiness of the moment and of the present. So,
sige Dok, may sasabihin ka pa.
Wala naman. Sige lang.
Well, ito sa mga na-mention mo, yung about doing and focusing on what is important to you lang, no? Without, siguro, not valuing too much of what other people will tell you, is very, nagbibigay siya ng freedom sa'yo na gawin yung mga bagay na talagang magpapasaya sa'yo. And as we are having this 30-minute conversation already, it goes to show that in order for you to be wealthy, you really have to be happy. And in order for you to be happy, you have to make sure that you do things that really add value to you, that are really meaningful to you. And tama nga na you can be wealthy by living simply and living frugally, like what you said. And that's what we want for the entire community to have. Kasi nga, many people are chasing the wrong things na eh.
But Jay, remember this. It is a constant struggle. Even I myself am struggling pagdating sa ganyan. For those who are listening to me now, even if I am saying it, don't even think that I'm practicing it. I am trying to practice it. I'm not, got to be very honest about it. Okay. In terms of finances, I don't have much. May ipon ako, pero it's not much. And I'm not as much stressed probably, comparatively speaking, when I was before, kung sakaling halimbawa nawalan ako ng pera. I think it has become a habit, at least for me, to be grateful for what I have, no matter how little it is or how small it is. And at the same time, I think na disiplina ko rin yung core ko to be really grateful for what I have and to just enjoy what I have at the moment. So I'm thankful that God gave me, even until today, to be alive. In fact, many other people, they don't have that kind of, they're not able to enjoy life up to a certain age. And that kind of a realization to me, na kung saan binigyan ako ng gift ng buhay na ganito, regardless of the challenges, it also gives me a realization na why would I try to secure myself with so much money, pursuing with so much money, when in fact I don't even know what will happen to me in the future? Why don't I, just try to achieve a certain stability, not necessarily security of the future, because I do not know the future, at least for my medical expenses, etc. Okay, probably some planning, financial planning, okay, which you are doing, by the way, Jay. And that is it. And no need for me to come up with, a mountain of wealth, because the thing is, I don't think I'll be able to bring it to heaven for that matter, or to hell for that matter when I die, wherever I will be, okay, in my struggles. And besides, look, I don't know, probably some people would say na, well, probably for your children, probably for your family, two things. I don't have children. And the other one also is that let also your children experience how it is to work. Let also your children experience how it is to be challenged, because it is a strengthening of character. You knew the value of challenges, the way that you were challenged when you were pursuing something, and it is a good thing. So why don't you allow your children to do that? And if they are good people, they're good persons, then they will be taken care of.
Yeah, and you are also a person of balance. Naalala ko pag sinasabi mo sa akin yung Tok. There's nothing wrong in achieving wealth nga, pero you have to make sure that there is balance. Hindi ka yung sobrang extreme to the fact na, you're not chasing wealth, pero you're already poor na you can't even afford yung basic necessities mo. And to a certain, sa other end of the spectrum, which is you are too wealthy and you forget na yung pinaka-values mo as an individual. You always tell us na anything that is too much is really bad. So you have to always strike the balance between those two.
True, that reminded me of Aristotle. It was actually Aristotle, Greek philosopher, who came up with that formula, that what we want really in this life is happiness, or our life well lived. In among the Greeks, they call it eudaimonia, okay, the greatest good. There are so many goods that people want in this life: a car, a house, a loving wife, a loving husband, etc. But these are minor goods. What we want is what is known as the greatest good. And the greatest good is happiness. The reason why you want to have a car because you want to be happy. The reason why you want to have an ideal boyfriend or girlfriend because you want to be happy. The reason why you want to be in a relationship because you want to be happy. The reason why you want to have a house because you want to be happy. So everything that you decide on is all about happiness. So the very foundation of your desire is actually the pursuance of happiness. The reason why you're not happy because of the absence of happiness. So it's still the reason is happiness. So lahat ng ginagawa natin dito, ang purpose lang naman talaga ay maging happy. Ang problema lang is, karamihan sa atin hindi alam kung paano magiging happy. Karamihan sa atin nare-redirect sa pagpupurso natin ng happiness na akala natin material wealth is the happiness. When in fact it is not. That material things are the wealth when in fact they're not. Because sinasabi ko nga, there are other forms of wealth. Your family, your relationship with your friends, your health, your freedom. And it's necessary to balance all of them. According to Aristotle, anything extreme, they're evil. I'll give you one example. Kahit in all practicability lang, wag na nating ipa-deepen pa into freedom or, or relationship. Let us say, for example, studies, pag-aaral. If you study too much, it's going to be harmful to you. But if you study also too little, nagiging ignorante ka rin naman, nagiging stupid at nagiging dumb. So, it should be balanced with work. It should be balanced with play. That is the reason why universities and colleges, it's going to be a balance between the academic life and the extracurricular activities. Kasi nga hindi po pwede talagang hindi balansin yon. Kahit sa pagkain, kumain ka ng kumain to the extreme, magiging unhealthy, magiging sakitin ka. Pag hindi ka naman kumakain, ganun din naman magiging sakitin ka. You will suffer the consequences of not eating. So, balance. The middle is, according to Aristotle, known as moderation. And being in moderation is the secret to a happy life. The same with sleep. Subukan mong matulog buong araw. You're not going to be productive, and that is what is known as the extreme. Subukan mo rin namang hindi matulog, mainit ang ulo mo palagi, magkakasakit ka pa, para kang lutang na lutang. So that is also the opposite extreme. So what is important in order for you to feel good and in order for you to be happy and to live a well-lived life or a balanced life is to be in moderation. Sleep accordingly and work accordingly and be awake accordingly. Anything that we do in order for us to be happy should be in moderation. But, and let me tell you this, it is not an easy thing to do. That is the reason why Aristotle mentioned that it should become a habit because we are persons of habit. Nang nagsimula kang manigarilyo at nakasanayan mong manigarilyo, naging habit ang paninigarilyo. Ibig sabihin nun, bago pa naging habit yon, sinimulan mo. So kung ang habit mo ay bad habit, pwede mo lang simulang magkaroon ng good habit. Ang importante, sinimulan.
Yes. It's all about balance and all. So before we continue, we just want to share we just want to tell na itong session natin is all about giving you another perspective about wealth. And later on, I'll ask Doc, paano once na ma-achieve natin yung wealth, paano natin siya i-keep, paano natin siya masusustain. And we'll talk about that after the break. Teka lang, nasa na yung commercial? Ilalagay commercial natin. Ayan.
Sending money back home is expensive, slow, and time-consuming. Not anymore. Introducing Denari Cash. Denari Cash solves this in a simple way. Denari Cash don't send money across border. Yes, you heard it right. So, you want to know how do we send money internationally without sending across the border? Simple. You make a local payment to Denari Cash, and Denari Cash makes a local payment to your recipient. That's right, it's local in then local out. From any account to any cash pickup and major bank account. That's the reason why Denari Cash makes money transfers so much cheaper and faster. Available on any mobile, tablet, and computer. Denari Cash is trusted and loved by tens of thousands of people just like you. So what are you waiting for? Sign up now and start saving now with Denari Cash.
And we're back. I'm still with the most decorated professor dito sa UAE, ang aking idol, ang aking landlord na si Doc Rex. So, ang topic natin today is all about, landlord talaga yun. It's all about the true meaning of wealth. And for the past 30 minutes, Doc has shared a lot of valuable insights on how we can truly define what wealth is. And before we continue, let's just give a huge shout out daw sa mga wealthy friends natin. Ayan, si Mang Emong About. Rich yan, Doc. Rich in vitamins and minerals. Ayan. Papagupit yan ngayon eh. And si Mato, ayan, you'll be more empathic talaga pag na-experience mo ang same situation. More of Doc Rex, bro. Sana may podcast. O Doc, nagre-request ng podcast. Magkakaroon na yan, bro. Malapit na. Dami niya na-record. And contagious positivity ni Doc. Yes, and that's why I did my best to bring him here in the program kasi nga, hindi naman natin, we shouldn't just focus on money alone. I know na I'm a financial planner and we teach people on how to manage their finances. Manage nga. We shouldn't let our finances manage us. And if we do not know what true wealth is, like what Doc is saying, then most definitely we might be chasing the wrong things in life. And maganda sinabi ni Doc kanina that you really have to pause for a while kasi nga work is not the most important thing in life. You have your friends, you have your health, you have your spouse, and all. Ngayon, Doc, let's say for me, I've already defined what true wealth is for me, based on my definition of it, based on how I perceive it and how I operate in this world, which is, I think, for me right now, I'm more living in a more intentful way. Na unlike before, na talagang I always work just to make money. And now that I am in this awakened phase, how do I feel that I'm already wealthy even before na ma-acquire ko yung things or yung status na gusto ko probably in the future. Now, having said that, how do you keep or how do you stay wealthy in your current state?
You're asking for consistency. Ang sa akin lang naman talaga niyan, just like what I mentioned earlier, if it becomes a habit, magsimula ka lang sa una and then it becomes a habit, then more or less you become consistent. But of course, even if I'm saying that more or less you become consistent, it is also good to be on guard every now and then. Na, kumbaga, ang sa akin kasi, if you become, sorry for saying this word, but I couldn't find any word, if you become enlightened in such a way, okay, what happens is you look at the world rather differently. You knew your priorities, and you are always reminded by those priorities. Nalalaman mo kasi pag, halimbawa, nang sinabi mo earlier na dapat ba yung practices ng monastery, dapat din bang ituro sa mga eskwelahan sa mga bata? Tapos ang sabi ko, yes. Okay? Kasi dapat doon pa lang mag-i-start na yung realization para dala-dala nila for consistency habang nasa journey sila na katulad natin. Remember, Jay, that I've always considered this as our journey. Again, I'm not going to be hypocritical. Ngayong pandemic, ngayong nag-resign ako sa trabaho, sometimes I still feel na paano kung walang trabaho makita. Kaya paano, may fears na ganun eh. Pero at the same time, yung mga natutunan ko sa monastery, na-apply ko kaagad sa sarili ko. Kaya I would like to think that I've befriended myself so much that I know my core. I might say it, my fears to some of my closest friends like Doc Romel and Doc Nino, okay? But inside me, because I'm able to accept that I'm only passing through in this life, then it gives me a sense of calm and peace and quiet. Yun lang naman ang inaano ko eh. Na sa una pa lang, or kung hindi mo man ginawa yun, gawin mo na ngayon until it becomes a habit for you to be able to maintain it. Because it does really something to your life. That realization through reflection, through meditation, that ability to look inside you and to detach yourself from the world and look at the world, what is happening out there, what is happening with the world from the perspective of an outsider. Kasi you must be able to do that eh. Yung tipong detach yourself from the world eh. Pag na-overwhelm ka ng problema at challenges, ang lagi kong ginagawa is dinidistansya ko ang sarili sa mundo. Tapos tinitingnan ko from the point of view of spirituality, tama ba itong ginagawa ko? Kasi hindi mo malalaman yan kung naka-immerse ka. Alam mo yung tipong, hindi mo naman malalaman kung mabaho ka, kung araw-araw na nakakasalamuha mo ay mabaho. Ganun naman yun, di ba? Kaya it's necessary for you to get out of it eh. Sorry for that example, but I'm just trying to give an example that you will not know what's the difference, and you will not know what's wrong until you have that ability to really observe the experiences of the world outwardly, not inwardly. Look,
yes.
As much as possible, I don't want, not that I don't want, but I'm advising that do not be focused on money as I mentioned as the end. Don't be focused on the career as if it is the only wealth in this world. Sinabi ko na ito dati kanina, there are other forms and there are other wealth, types of wealth. And in fact, there was this one student of mine who asked me that, Doctor, do overachievers, those who always pursue, and those who really achieve what they pursue, it's good because they're not stressed. Unlike poor people, if they don't have money, they're stressed because they do not know what they're gonna, if they have food next, on their table, probably the next day or after. And I said, it's true. But look, and I think several years ago, I've read a book of Tony Robbins and Thomas Merton, these two in terms of spiritual life, okay? So I like Tony Robbins because it's not really in the religious aspect, but he says something about spirituality. And Thomas Merton is really one of my idol writers in the monastery. And they actually both, and I do agree with them in saying that it's true. Overachievers, they're not stressed, but that is true. They're not afraid, but they are stressed. I think when you're poor, you are afraid. Hindi mo alam kasi kung kailan kukunin ang susunod. Pero pag overachiever ka, hindi ka nga afraid, pero stressed ka. And that is the reason why I think being stressed is the overachiever's word for fear.
Pala yun, ha? So when you are overachieving, there's a certain way. Is it because of certain insecurities? Pag ganun, na
Well, probably one. Hindi ko naman pwedeng ikahon na yun lang ang dahilan nun eh. Probably one. But the thing is, look, you need to maintain many things. You need to take care of many, many things. There are so many concerns when you are an overachiever. And at the same time, if you are not careful, it pricks your ego. Naapektuhan ang ego mo nun eh. And when I say pricks your ego, of course, it balloons first.
Yeah.
And then finally, since you cannot please everyone, if somebody says something against you or not to your liking, then it is like as if they're pricking you and you get affected by it unnecessarily. Okay. That is why the most beautiful people in my experience, actors and actresses, again with exceptions, but I've worked at ABS-CBN as one of I've trained and given conferences and seminars to actors and actresses of ABS-CBN before. And I was giving conferences and workshops on how to handle fame, how to handle the reporters, etc. So I noticed that many of the beautiful actors and actresses were actually also the most insecure ones. Ang gaganda ng kutis, ang gaganda ng mamukha. Pero never pa ako nakakita, at least karamihan sa kanila ng pinaka-insecure na tao. Pag dumadating sila sa studio ng ABS-CBN noon, inoobserbahan ko sila, ang una nilang tinitingnan, yung mga kutis ng ibang tao, may pimple ba? Ang unang itatanong sa akin noon halata ba yung pimple ko dito? It's just a pimple, and yet they're so obsessed with that kind of an imperfection.
And with that kind of thinking, parang it corrupts their inner peace. Kasi nga, they keep on comparing yung ibang tao sa kanila. And as we are, di ba? And Doc, is it safe to say that the secrets to being wealthy in many aspects of life is to be grateful, or the art of gratitude, like what you said kanina. And you also mentioned how important it is to self-reflect every now and then.
Yes, three things. But Jay, let me in alignment dun sa sinasabi mo earlier sa earlier topic natin. Anything that's physical, pag yun ang pinursue mo, anything that's material, according to Plato, material things corrupt the soul. It corrupts the mind. Okay, so if you become obsessive with anything material and you think that wealth is really about material things, then trust me, it will corrupt your soul. You will lose focus. Okay, and it didn't come from me, but it came from Plato, a Greek philosopher. But I know that to be correct based on my experience. And you were saying earlier again, what was the question?
Yeah, yung parang the secret to staying wealthy would be, yeah, like what you mentioned, pinagdidikit-dikit ko na lang siya, yung mga habits that you mentioned kanina, like gratitude, self-reflection.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yun yun.
Jay, I've always believed that everything is grace. When I say grace, everything is good. Okay? Because the thing is, and that's coming from Saint Teresa of the Child Jesus, who was my favorite, still is my favorite saint. Saint Teresa of the Child Jesus went through different difficulties, different challenges, tasks. And but what she did, because of an internal spiritual realization, she would actually welcome difficulties. Okay, because, and I'm going to give you a spiritual secret in terms of being calm and being happy. I know many of the listeners, or majority of the listeners here are going to be Catholic, to be spiritual persons, probably not necessarily affiliated to a certain religion, but I still believe that these are spiritual persons who believe in the Spirit and who believe in God. Now, I have to give you the example and the secret of Saint Teresa of the Child Jesus. Because it really affected my life when I was in the monastery into looking at the difficulties of life. Again, I'm not going to be hypocritical. I'm still being affected by challenges and difficulties, but there is a way of alleviating it. Okay? There is a way of uplifting, of making it light. Saint Teresa, ang natutunan ko sa kanya noon is, napapansin ko sa kanya, sa story, sa autobiography niya, sabi niya, na-irritate siya kasi sa monasteryo noon, kasi nun din siya pag time na maglalaba, pag naglalaba sila sa monastery, nakapila. So, sila, nakahilera. Mid-time na, itong sister, pag naglalaba, tumatalsik pag naglalaba. So, nasasabuyan ang mukha niya, human nature, naiirita siya. Pero, naisip niya, there are two types of suffering or difficulty. The voluntary difficulty and the involuntary difficulty. What is a voluntary difficulty? Ito yung nagkaroon ka ng challenges, nagkaroon ka ng problema kasi naman ginawa mo. Di ba? Ganun naman yan. Ako, halimbawa, sabi mo, nangutang ako, wala naman akong balak bayaran, bigla akong, katapos pinanggamit ko sa kung ano-ano lang na luho, bigla ngayon dumating ang pulis, katapos uhulihin ako, nakulong. Ginawa mo yon. Voluntary yon, yung challenge din. But there is also an involuntary difficulty or challenge. Ito yung mga hindi mo ginawa, pero napunta sa'yo dahil sa ibang pangyayari o sa ibang tao. Katulad ng istorya ng madre na yon. Hindi naman, yung pag-ano ng bula sa kanya, gawa ng madre. Hindi naman galing sa kanya. So sabi niya, this is an opportunity, I will turn this into prayer because this is a grace from God. So since sabi ko sa family ko may sakit, biglang dumating itong grasya na bula na pumupunta sa akin na aksidente, hindi ko naman hiningi, then this must be an opportunity coming from God for me to pray, to offer this kind of a difficulty for a particular intention. Doon sasabihin ko, God, please, okay, I'm suffering now because of this person. I'm feeling angry. Okay, I have to pray this to convert this into prayer for a particular suffering. Where is she coming from? Remember that the life of Jesus and the life of the apostles and the life, of those followers of God, they actually practiced turning sacrifices into prayers. Yun ang sikreto nila Kaya yung burden nila is light. Because they found a way of alleviating that difficulty, involuntary difficulty, turning them into prayer for a particular intention. Ginagawa ko yan pag, halimbawa, give you an example, pag natatraffic ako, inis na inis ako, human nature natural, maiinis ka tao naiinis ako. But, unlike siguro sa others, okay, or few, na kung saan inis na inis hanggang mapunta sa opisina na wala na nung traffic, dala-dala pa rin yung bagahe na yun ng pagka-traffic. The point here is, yung traffic, hindi mo naman ginawa. Umalis ka ng bahay ng maaga, na traffic ka pa rin. So hindi mo nakasalanan. Dumating sa'yo yun na traffic ka. So instead of cursing, instead of blaming the situation, turn it into prayer. For my brother, for example, or for my sister, or for my friend, or for the government, or for anyone or anything who is suffering. And you will notice, because now the suffering or difficulty has value, then you achieved something. And that difficulty, that burden is light.
Ang galing. So, yun yung first time na narinig ko yung ganong klase ng way of thinking na I thought you were saying, Doc, na if you focus on the things that are beyond your control, then you're wasting your energy na eh. And normally what I do there is I focus on myself. Instead of blaming other people, I'd rather blame myself and probably do better next time. Pero what you said is that you convert that negative emotion to something positive.
Something positive through prayer. Because whether you like it or not, we're spiritual persons. And you are in that situation. There is no escaping a situation that you did not do. Kaya nga involuntary siya. Katulad nitong pag-uusap natin, Jay, ayoko naman talaga makipag-usap sa'yo. Pero, naisip ko, ito ng Diyos. And this is something that is good. So, I have to go through, suffer through this, joyfully. Because I'm able to convert it into a prayer, saying that kung ano man ang nararamdaman ko ngayon, I'd better put a meaning and a purpose to this by offering this to my family in the Philippines. Again, this is just an example. It is not true na ayoko makipag-usap. It's just an example. You can always have so many situations, everyday encounters in your life. Your normal life will always be replete. We'll always have instances na kung saan makaka-encounter ka ng both voluntary and involuntary situations. Whatever you do and whatever it is that you encounter, always make it a habit to put value and purpose and meaning to that encounter by making that, transforming that into a prayer for a particular purpose. If you keep on doing that, you will go through our journey blessed. You will go through life's journey more meaningful and with more purpose. And God from heaven will look at what you're doing, and God will see the treasures, okay, the treasures that you've saved, the spiritual ones. And I'm very sure God will himself be the one to open the gates of heaven for you.
Galing, grabe. May bago naman natutunan today. It's another practice that I should try. Kasi normally when I pray, I just do it in the morning for gratitude, prayer of gratitude, prayer of strength. Pero what you told me today is a good practice that I should practice.
Jay, let me, just for the sake of the others as well, I know that I'm not doing it regularly, but at least listen to what I say, not necessarily follow my example. You should be able to distinguish that. But let me tell you this, based on my experience in the monastery and the learnings that I got from the monastery, prayer is not one instance or two instances. Prayer is not just allotting time during the day to kneel or to probably be in a silent mode to ask for a favor from God. Prayer is you. In everything that you do should be a life and action of prayer. Whether you are at home, whether you are in school or university, whether you are in the workplace, whether you are in the kitchen, it should always be moments and moments of prayers. Everything should always be an opportunity for prayer.
Got it, Doc. Copy. Now, after all of these years that you've lived on this earth, all the struggles that you've encountered in the past and even today, what do you think would be your, or you consider as your ultimate wealth right now? Or do you think ba, siguro dalawang question to Doc, do you think you're wealthier now in terms of your own definition when you were younger, or now that you have accomplished something in your life? And then the second question to that, the follow-up is that, what would be something that you consider as your ultimate wealth?
Ang masasabi ko lang wealth na to, again, people think that I have more than enough. I don't. I'm a teacher, for Christ's sake. And I've been teaching at ACD with, probably the least of all salaries. Compared sa amin, Doc Romel, Doc Nino, ako yata ang poor sa amin by their standard. Okay? And, but my point is, my point here is, I think what I treasure the most is my ability to accept and to enjoy what I have. And I think for me, that is a wealth that I consider to be, a real treasure to me. I live for and by the moment. Yung tipong ini-enjoy ko ito ngayon, ini-enjoy ko siya. Kung hindi ko man siya enjoyin, kino-convert ko into prayer. So I am able to maintain that kind of a peace and calm in my life. I have my fears. Trust me, I have. Lalo na ngayong pandemic, hindi mo alam kung anong susunod, hindi mo alam ang mangyayari in a few months, etc. I have. But from time to time, kasi yung treasure na nangyari sa akin sa monasteryo, na naging habit ko, na dala-dala ko, yun ang nag-guide sa akin eh. It's like a moral compass. It's like a compass of my life na every time I am afraid and every time that I get disturbed, parang naturally, nag-guide sa akin eh. Ito yung dapat mong gawin. Ito yung na-experiensyahan mo. Yun ang kumbaga, yun ang para sa akin, since it gives me strength and it strengthens my core as a person despite not having a job at this time, despite of resigning. I still, I'm at peace. I'm able to go on. I'm able to give conferences and seminars. If a community asks me, I'm still able to do it joyfully. Precisely because of the idea that I am a journey person, a journeyman. I'm journeying in this world. And whatever happens, as long as you are doing what you think is good and what you think is right, including what is in your heart and in your intention, nothing will be able to move you. Nothing will be able to disturb you. They could probably just harm the physical aspect of my life, but not my spirit. And I think for me, that's the greatest treasure. If there is probably one that I'm trying to do is to take care of my family in the Philippines. Because if there is one, and I'm going to be very honest with everyone, if there's one thing that I've regretted is my father died before I am able to at least support him or give him what I think he deserves by taking care of me. Namatay kasi siya nang nandito ako sa Dubai. Kaya nang namatay siya, hindi pa ako nakauwi noon. And na-bother ako noon sa idea na I could have given him more. And kung napadali lang ang pagpunta ko dito sa Dubai noon, I could have given him more. But you see, that is already the past. That even if I regretted that is already it's already out there. It's done. What I can do is try to take care of the family that I have at this point. See, and that when my father died, that's also a realization to me that do not even wait to build good relationships, not just with other people, but most especially with your family, because your family is wealth. Your family is a treasure. The kind of relationship that you have. And I think what sustains me also is that kahit na merong bigat, when my father died and I was not with my father and I wasn't able to give him what I think he deserves, it doesn't weigh me down. Because I know that in heaven, he must have, and I'm very sure of that, he has a good life. I've always considered dying not as being dead, not as having no life. I've always considered really it as an opening. It's a door towards our true home. Kaya nga palaging ang feeling ko, ang ano ko palagi is, I'm a person of trust and I'm a person of hope. Probably the worst will come, or probably I've experienced the worst in the past, but what makes me really solidly in foundation is because of my ability to spiritualize things.
And iba yung perspective na binibigay mo sa amin, Doc, when you speak to us nandito sa kusina and all, yung ideas mo really, I mean, it's something that will that I have valued so much, and it changed my way of thinking na rin on how I handle itong stress, itong dumating na COVID, itong dumating na pandemic. And what you told me na yung itong mga situation na to are really just temporary and this is part of the journey. And like what you said, that life is also fleeting. Na what's more important is how you deal with things. It's how you see it. And like you've encountered more struggles than I have in my life. And you're a perfect example of how I should handle mine too. And siguro if I'm going to, ito na, nandito na sa dulo ng aking segment, which is in today's takeaway ko, towards the end, I realized how important family is. Kasi nga, for the last couple of years that I've been staying here, all I wanted was to have a secured life. Diba? Secured life na maging financially secured so I can also provide for myself and provide something for the family. Which is, I think, siguro nga, since there's no balance for those past few years, I've neglected some of the times na I should have communicated with them more. And in this episode of ours, it gave me that that time to bigla mag-self-reflect na gano'n na ba karaming binibigay ko uling oras na I'm giving to my family back home. And yun nga, parang medyo teary eyes na ako kasi it gave me that wake-up call then na I should also not just focus on my career, not focus on my advocacy, but also focus on the people that are really part of my life, which is my family back home. Kaya yun, I think it's one realization that I have to take action on then. And again, like what you said, Doc, work is not that important, but at the same time, you really have to strike the balance between everything and every important area of your life to make you really feel wealthy.
And Jay, don't worry too much, because I noticed that you've been worrying too much about being secure, having to marry the love of your life, saan ko kanyang pag-gastos, etc. But our existence is founded always on love. And if the love is strong, regardless of certain process, regardless of how we get there, as long as you're together, as long as you maintain that kind of peace, and you knew for a fact that God will take care of you, then I don't think you should be worrying really too much because it is not worth it.
Thank you, Doc. Well noted yan. And as always, lagi kang natutunan pag ikaw yung kausap ko. Now, since this my program is mainly about wealth and financial wealth, to be very specific. Now, last question to you, Doc, is how do you want to be remembered in terms of how you use your financial wealth? Oh, yan. Very specific to money na yan. Since I'm a financial planner.
I am struggling even until now pagdating sa financial stability, not necessarily security, because as I mentioned, I've always considered tomorrow as something that I just need to take care tomorrow. Okay, I live for the moment. I have stress, but probably less more than the others. Of course, the idea is not to totally eradicate stress, okay, but of course just to lessen it. So in terms of the question that you've asked, pagdating sa ano ang inaano mo?
Finances. How do you want to be remembered in terms of how you used your wealth during your life?
For me, it's more on if I have more than enough, or even if I have enough. Okay, even if I have enough, that I'm able to use money or this tool to help other people. That I'm able to do that, and of course, the other forms of wealth, which is going to be of my health. And that is the reason why, as much as possible, when I was young, I actually went to the gym, I went to mountain climbing, and I'm still reaping the rewards of health because of, the activities that I had before. Bihira ako magkasakit, at least I hope walang mangyari. Pero I put a premium also to, for example, vitamins, etc. Madami akong vitamins sa bahay because I consider also my health as my wealth. That is the idea. Again, for the information of everyone, I don't have much, but whatever it is I have, I try to share with others. And I don't think, even if somebody gives me $1 million now, that I will change my ways. I've learned my lessons when I came first to Dubai. Kasi galing sa monasteryo, doon ako lumaki sa monasteryo. Pagdating ko dito, ang daming magagandang gamit. So I went into, since single naman ako, wala namang pamilya talaga na nag-aaral, okay? So ang nangyayari is, namili ako ng namili. But then I think God made me realize na wala rin naman talagang saysay eh. Ito nga yung sinasabi ko na it was a very pleasant feeling, katapos wala. May dumating na bago, nag-advertise na naman itong ganitong store o kaya company, limited edition. Okay, but of course, you realize that they're not necessarily limited. Sinabi lang limited para makabenta sila. pero they could actually produce more. Ayaw lang para magkaroon ng interest. I mean, all this manipulation. I think, after, again, experiencing buying these expensive things, a few years ago, I realized that nothing. Nananakaw, nasisira, nawawala, and then hindi ka pa rin naman happy. Hindi ka pa rin naman masaya. You have those things. In fact, success without fulfillment is a very sad life.
Yes.
It's going to be a very sad life. That is why I would rather that you are able to balance it. Money as a tool, realize that. And then it should support your relationships. It should support your advocacy. It should support your family.
Yun. Very well said, Doc. And I first heard that story yung statement na success without fulfillment is, I think, the ultimate suffering. Narinig ko siya kay Tony Robbins, and I also got that realization through that by reading his book. Like what you said, you're also a fan of his work, and I totally agree with what it is that you have said. So, pero guys, we're not trying to say here na money is not important, pero what we and Doc are saying is that it is a tool, and if you don't have the tool, then there's no way for you to build something. Kaya money is still an important area of our Yun. Yun. Kasi baka sabihin ng iba, di naman pala mahalaga ang pera eh. So, okay na to. Meron na tayong pamilya, sama-sama tayo, lulubog sa utang. Mahal naman natin ang isa't isa sa
Hindi naman. I think it was very clear since the beginning na sinabi kong importante siya, pero should not be your focus and should not be your priority. Kasi ako, as a person, very practical din ako eh. I don't think I'll survive without money. I don't think so, okay? Because it is also not good not to work. Because if you don't work and you don't have money, it means that you are not utilizing the gift or the skill given to you by God. So you are expected to work. Part of our nature of as human beings is basically to work. And a person who doesn't work does not recognize the gift given to him by God.
Yun. Tama. We should be, we should hone our gift and our talent so that we would be able to fulfill yung life purpose that was given by God. Like what Doc has been saying. So yon, maraming salamat guys. And nakabalik na si Mang Emo, nakapagtugupit na siya. Wow, bagong gupit. And Doc, saan ka ba namin ma-reach or yung mga viewers natin out there? Where can they reach you? How can they contact you if they have any questions or need your guidance in life and your wisdom?
Kumakatok ka nga lang sa kwarto ko eh. I have my Facebook. I also I have my Facebook. In fact, I have my page, but I'm usually active on my not private, but my own account, Rex Bacarra. I also just recently have my, what do you call this again? My YouTube.
Oh.
I just need the one. I usually have my whatever it is that I have in mind. Then nilalagay, nag-video lang ako. Tapos bago lang yon. Okay, I hope that you can subscribe as well. Baka naman may matutunan din kayo. Those are my life experiences and my points of view sa pagdating sa mundo ko kung ano man. And I also have my IG, the Philosopher Monk, because my doctorate is philosophy and I was a former monk. And that's basically that, nothing more.
And upcoming na podcast, definitely, di ba, Doc?
Yeah.
Yung Baka Naman Show by Doc Rex Bacarra, di ba? So yun, guys, thank you so much for watching. Yung 4 million viewers namin who's watching this, thank you so much na tinapos mo tong 1-hour episode namin ni Doc Rex. All about wealth. And next week, we'll be talking about other stuff about business, entrepreneurship, and different ways of how we can live our life and maximize our money to live life in a more meaningful way. So yun, maraming salamat ulit. Thank you, Doc, once again for your time. Let's have lunch na kasi nga I'm hungry na. Okay. See you and bye-bye!
Bye-bye.
I'm hungry po.